the English and the French. We didn't mix. The Upper Canada College boys used to, kind of look. We would be playing tennis, and what was I going to do from 8 o'clock till 4:30? I said, I never wanted to be a lawyer, so what big deal? Just went in and wrote the LSAT. Say, okay, I need a walker, but that doesn't mean I can't think.
What moments in your life have stand out as truly meaningful?
Oh, lots. I was born in 1945, just at the end of the Second World War, 21st of June, longest day of the year, or approximately. I was born in East Malartic gold mine. It was a property, a mine property in Abitibi, Northern Quebec, quite far north. She and I were both born at home because at that time the hospitals were really, everything was geared towards the war. My dad was a mine manager of East Malartic gold mine, and why I'm clarifying it, in that area, the nearest town where my brother went to high school was Val d'Or, which is obviously the Valley of Gold in French. That area, the whole Abitibi area, was very rich in minerals. My dad pretty well did what he wanted. I mean, he made money for the company. He ran it like a little kingdom. He was the boss, and I mean, there was no union or anything. I mean, he was a benevolent despot. He knew the guys, he knew who was who and who was doing what, and he didn't like to be on surface. He hated the office. He didn't spend much time in the office, but he went underground morning and afternoon. They went underground and, saw what was going on and checked this and that, and saw the miners, and they knew him, he knew them, and
he's a good boss.
He was a good boss, fair and understanding, I think, of foibles and difficulties. But the town of Chibougamau was where there was a school. It was a French Catholic school, and English students were all in one grade, all in one room, grades 1 to 8. I was there for 1 year, so we were this little English class in a French school.
How was your experience, going?
Well, it was really interesting because you were with like a whole different group of people, right? All different backgrounds. It was kind of the two solitudes, right? The English and the French. We didn't mix. It was funny. We were separate. We had the two languages, and of course, that's what is the issue in Quebec, has always been. At that time, all the bosses, the people who ran things were Anglophone. They were English. They were Scots from Nova Scotia. They were from everywhere. But the French were not. It was like a colonial situation. The French were not the bosses. They were the they were agricultural, they were workers, they were more governed by the church. The church was really in charge, of everything. And then my dad was transferred to head office in Toronto, which he hated. He did not like being in an office. I didn't go to a public high school. I went to a private girls' school in Toronto. And
what's it called?
Pardon?
Do you remember what it's called? That's
Bishop Strawn School. It was right beside Upper Canada College. They were all boys. Nobody was integrated at that point, right? So the Upper Canada College boys used to, kind of look. We would be playing tennis, and it was like, talking about two solitudes. And so then I went to McGill. I wanted to go back to Quebec, more interesting, right? So I went to McGill, did my BA at McGill. I was studying English language and literature, and I continued on, did my master's there. Graduated for my first degree in 1965, and then in 1967, I got married to my husband, who was in dental school at that time. At McGill, yeah, the McGill Dental School. My son was born in '69, so I stayed home and looked after him and, did housewifely things and did a lot of volunteer work because I like being out. I like doing stuff that wasn't just like keeping house. I wasn't very good at keeping house. I was okay with kids. I really liked my children, and I like to cook, but the rest of the stuff, like cleaning, laundry, forget it. I did not like that. So I was home for 13 years. My daughter was born in '75. When she was 7, we were living sort of in the country, like 25K outside of Windsor, Ontario, and she took the bus in the morning and went in to school in Puce, which is a little town. It was the nearest school. She went there on the bus, and there I was, right, home. What was I gonna do from 8 o'clock till 4:30? And it was really bad economy at that time, and I didn't have official teaching certificate. I just had a master's degree. You can't teach high school in Ontario unless you have all these proper certifications, or teach in a private school. Well, there was no private school for me to teach in, and there was no teaching jobs anyway. Yeah. Everything was really low down. So my husband was a dentist, and he had a couple of his patients were what you call mature students. They'd gone back to law school from being other things. One was a social worker, one was anyway, he came home, he said, well, so-and-so and so-and-so went to law school. Why don't you go? I said, well, I never wanted to be a lawyer. He said, well, but we'll try it out. So I said, so I went and met with Dean of Admissions, I guess it was. Really nice guy, John Whiteside. He said, oh, this sounds like you might like this. And so I sat the LSAT, that big, well, now the LSAT is a big deal, you study for it, this and that. Oh, I got a few precedent exams from the LSAT, looked at them a couple weeks before the day of, so what, big deal. Just went in and wrote the LSAT, and my LSATs were respectable. I'm not saying they were good enough.
What score did you get?
Well, I don't remember.
Okay,
At that time, I can't remember the height of the top mark, but I was respectable. And then I practiced law for 25 years. 10 years in private practice when I hardly made any money. I made some money, but I was doing lots of legal aid work and not very much cash work. And if I did work for cash, Usually I was doing family, mostly family, and the women I represented often didn't have any money until the matrimonial home was sold. It was there was a lot of poor. The men I represented, they could pay, but they didn't. Anyway, it was not a lot of money. I mostly tended to be representing these women who didn't have any money. So it's either legal aid, which was not highly remunerative, or cash clients who couldn't really afford it. The bottom line is I didn't make much money in the first 10 years of practice, but the good thing was I got a job. After 10 years of practice, I got a real job where I got a salary, benefit. I was working for a community legal clinic. And the reason I got that job was I was bilingual. It was a bilingual legal clinic. It was centered in Windsor. Windsor is one of the areas of Ontario under the French Language Services Act that is entitled to representation in French. I was a manager, I was a director and a lawyer. I did both, but it sounds great, right? I was a director. We were 5 people. It was a small clinic, but a director's a director, right?
So you were still representing clients,
Yeah.
but you were also in an administrative
Right, I was
role.
running the
Administrative. Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
I was running the show, which I loved. I loved telling people what to do. It was my managerial.
Genes from your dad.
But my dad. Yeah.
So what were some highlights or peaks in your career, or like
Well,
that time of your life?
I don't know. I think that working in the legal clinic was the best because we got to represent a lot of people that they had to qualify for legal aid basically. They couldn't have any money. It was a very low bar, you really couldn't have much. You were on Ontario Works, Ontario Disability. For the French side, we represented a lot of refugees, newcomers, coming from the French part of Africa, the Congo, like the Belgians had settled Congo, Rwanda, whole area. Côte d'Ivoire, the French had settled. It was like all that colonial area in Africa that was all divided up. I mean, it's all this colonial business, right? Well, there was a lot of trouble in Africa, right? So remember in 1994, there was the big civil war, and the Hutus killed off all the Tutsis. It was terrible. So we had refugees, Tutsi people came and were accepted to Canada as refugees. In terms of mistakes, I learned don't try to do something you don't really know about. Like in law practice, there's challenges and you really have to learn one area or maybe 2 areas. But if you try to do something that you don't really know or you learn or whatever, you can get into trouble. So that's a lesson I learned, stick to what you know. One of the biggest challenges is that after the birth of my son in 1969, I developed a psychosis, a postpartum psychosis, which became effectively a bipolar disorder, mental disorder. So I've been living with that all these years, and I've had to take lots of medication, counseling, psychotherapy, hooked up with psychiatrists. That whole avenue has been an undercurrent of my life, and it's something that I've had to deal with all the way along. So that's been a real challenge.
When you look back through your entire lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
what moments in your life have stand out as truly meaningful?
Oh, lots. Hard to pin it down.
Or it's like, what's some like major milestones in your life that you feel like really contributed to who you are today, sort of? Maybe it's like your family, your career.
Well, I would think that the combination of my early life and my marriage, children, they're all kind of mixed in. I would say that the birth of my children, my son, also very significant is the birth of my daughter in 1975. My psychiatrist, they didn't want me to have another child because I had all these problems. And I said, you have another baby, you know. I wanted another, so I had a baby, and she's been great. She's a fantastic daughter, but I was depressed, solidly depressed for 2 years after she was born. I mean, she's worth it, right? She's fantastic. She lives around the corner. Well, I'm proud of the fact that I survived all this, you know, and also that I'm an intelligent, thoughtful, creative person. I don't know. I mean, that's what if in terms of being proud, I don't consider it pride so much as.
And that you're here. That's.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm alive, and yeah, I've done a lot in 81 years. Come a long distance from Chibougamau to here, Oakville. Advice to my younger self was be not so stiff-necked about things and to accept help, you know, when you needed it, instead of, you know, putting your elbows out like you're in a hockey game and not accepting. But acceptance, very, very difficult as you age. You know, these limitations you have, these physical limitations, and they're hard to take, you know, because you know, your arms ache, your knees ache, whatever. I've had 2 knee replacements, 1 shoulder replacement. I'm waiting for the other shoulder replacement. I mean, we're lucky that this can be done, but the whole idea of acceptance, say, okay, you know, I need a walker, but that doesn't mean I can't think. It's hard to, and that's what I would tell my younger self. You know, wake up, you need help, take it. But the younger self doesn't want that, you know, a younger person, you know. I don't want to be old and tired and sick and stupid, but you're not. You're just wearing out physically, right?
And you're still writing poetries with us today.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with your head, but your body, you know, will often betray you. You know what I mean?
What messages would you like to leave for the younger generation?
Oh, well, I would like to say that you should put effort into things, especially things you're interested in, or make something you have to do interesting for you. For example, as I said, I never planned to be a lawyer, but once I was a lawyer, I did the law in the way I wanted to do it. It isn't classic. I don't fit the bill. I mean, the typical lawyer mentality, it's not me. I'm more a people person rather than a legal person. But what I did was good, which I would encourage any child, grandchild of mine to do, is to take their career and use it to suit their skills. So you use your skill set wherever you are, in whichever domain you are. Tailor what you're doing to what you are. So you're given a path, and then you make yourself work in that path. That's what I would say. Make your life work for you.
Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, we can't wait to get this out and show it to you. Wrap? That's
Done?
That's the wrap.
Turned off?
Turn this on.
All right.